You're right, I thought I'd do a video on the MPC Live 2 and how I sync that up with my external instruments in basically like a DAWLESS fashion, and using an external audio interface for more ins and outs for the MPC. It just means that then you can route your synths to your interface and then send various MPC effects to those. Use this as like a main hub, like a brain of a live setup or as a jamming setup. No need for a computer, which is quite nice. I don't really know why I've kind of got into the idea of doing it, but I guess I've used a DAW for years and years and years, and I thought I'd try the DAWless side of things. I'll basically just be using USB MIDI and 5-pin MIDI. I think I might have already mentioned doing some daisy chaining with the other synths, and then using MIDI and audio channels on the MPC. Just basically showing you how I've synced it together, settings that I use, and kind of a little jam at the end just so you can see it working. Yeah, the instruments that I've got hooked up to it are Digitact TD3, so 303 clone by Behringer, RD9, 909 clone by Behringer, you can see it just there. The Pro 3, Mode Grandmother, Mini Freak, and then a Echo System by Empress guitar pedal, which is the Moog Grandmother's going through, which is then going into the Digitact. I'll explain all of that in the rest of the video. But yeah, hopefully you find it interesting or it helps you out. As I may have already mentioned, I've kind of done a lot of reading and YouTubing about this particular setup. So I thought I'd put it all together in one video. And yeah, essentially syncing everything up. So that's now playing all of that on. Yeah, there's loads more I'm sure you can do with the MPC. This is fairly, as I say, kind of fundamental, simple, straightforward MIDI clocking really. And yeah, the more I get into it, I think the more I'll discover, and the more videos I'll do. Yeah, hopefully you get something out of it. So I'll try and get through this quite quickly. It's going to be a fairly simple start-stop message type setup. So using the MPC as the kind of hub, like the brain. I've got my audio interface in standalone mode, so no need for a computer. I'm using the MIDI USB for that here, and then I'm using the other USB MIDI going into my Mini Freak synthesizer, and then I'm using the two outs going into two other synths, and then I'll be using kind of daisy chain methods, so MIDI outs and MIDI through from my other synths to control the other synths. But it's basically to get everything to sync up and to do start-stop messages. Okay, hopefully you can see this. It's just a case in terms of getting it to sync start-stop wise with your synths and your MIDI gear. It's literally preferences, audio device, because I'm using an external sound card in standalone mode though, so again, DAWless, don't need a computer for this. It's just a case of choosing that audio device, selecting the 32 ins and outs, and then the last thing to do, the last few things to do, is whatever you've got going out of your USB MIDI and your 5-pin MIDI, just sync it here. And then one final thing is you want to make sure that you send the MIDI clock, which is just here. Okay, so this is the back of the Digitact. So we've got the MIDI out coming from one of the MPC 5-pin MIDI DIN outs straight into this. I'm sending a copy of that start-stop signal message via MIDI through to another synth, the 303. The MIDI out of this one is going to my Moog grandmother, just because I'm using the Digitact as a sequencer for it rather than the onboard sequencer with the grandmother. It's just like using the keys. It's fairly basic. It's nice because it's different, but I like sequencing it with the Digitact. So that's those MIDIs covered. Audio ins, audio outs, basically. So okay, move on to the next. Right, this is the front of the Digitact. I'll just quickly show you the settings that I use. Hopefully you can see these all right here. If you can't, I'm talking you through it, so it should be alright. So you go settings, then come to this screen, you scroll down to MIDI config, yes on that, yes to sync, and you want to tick clock receive and transport receive, and basically that will receive the clock and the transport from the MPC. Oh, and if you want to, because I'm sequencing the grandmother from this, if you want to do the same, I chose, for whatever reason, MIDI channel F, and then within that you just choose your MIDI channel so my grandmother is on MIDI channel 6, and it's just a case of holding function and pressing that encoder down, and then you choose number 6 or whichever MIDI channel you need for whatever you're using, controlling out of here. Okay, so this is the 303. This is going via the MIDI through of my Digitact, which is taking the signal from the MIDI out of the MPC to the MIDI in of the Digitact, and it's literally going into the back. So I didn't really need to show you that. It's just MIDI in at the back of the 303, and then to get it to receive MIDI signal, you've got these options along here. It's internal MIDI, USB or trig. Hold the right and back buttons down. I better show you that there, and it will flash briefly and show you what you're on. So here, 2's flashing, which is MIDI. If it's on anything else, you just literally select 2, and that's you on MIDI. Okay, so this is the RD9 Behringer drum machine. Again, I won't go into detail showing you the back. It's literally a case of using MIDI in and MIDI through. So the MIDI in is the second MIDI out from the MPC, going directly into that. And then on the RD9, really straightforward. All you need to do for it to accept MIDI is select from using this. So similar to the 303, it's internal MIDI, USB or trig. Got it on MIDI, and that's literally it for the RD9. Okay, so the Pro 3, one of the other synths hooked up to the MPC. I think I forgot to mention on the RD9 drum machine, I'm using the MIDI through from there directly to the MIDI in on the back of the Pro 3, and then you just go to global mode, similar to lots of synths but a different way of doing it, but it's the same sort of thing. All I'm interested in is clock mode in, so that means I'm going to receive it from the MPC. The MIDI clock cable is MIDI, not USB, although it would be USB MIDI, but it just means MIDI 5-pin. And that, ignore that. And that's it for that, straightforward. Okay, so the one guitar pedal, an external effect outside of a synth that I'm using, is the Empress Echo System. I'm using the through from the Pro 3 to go into the Echo System, but via 1/4" jack. So it's MIDI in at one end, 1/4" jack at the other end, and then that syncs. And I've got the grandmother going into that. So basically, however I use this is now in sync with whatever BPM I use from the MPC. and then when I play the grandmother through it, that reflects it. So if I'm using delays and stuff, the sync's great, really. Okay, so on the Mini Freak, you just hit hold shift, which you can see on the left there. At the same time as holding down the sound edit mode. You have to forgive the wobbliness, I've not quite got the right setup here to do this shot. And then it's just a case of going in and selecting, I'll get a better shot on that, come on. So ignore your MIDI channel for now, just literally syncing start-stop messages. You want to go into MIDI from, USB only, and that's it. That's literally it, because I've got this going from USB MIDI into the back of the MPC. So the other USB port that's in the MPC, and that should be everything. So this, let's have a look so you can get a better shot. So basically, these, other than the Roland keyboard, which once I get the USB hub, I'll change this setup round, but for now, it will just, once I hit the MPC, not hit it, press start, you should be able to see, actually I'll do it now, so let's go to main. I'll do like a track in a minute, in a second, after this video, link it onto the end of it and show you. But so this is like now controlling everything basically. So you can see the Digitact's playing, 303's playing, RD9's playing, sequencer on the Pro 3's playing. Oh, the sequencer isn't playing on that. Oh, it is now, out of sync because I've just turned it on in a different way. And then the grandmother is synced through this, and that blue LED is flashing to the MIDI clock. So yeah, hope that helps in some way or other. So the way I've got the MPC set up so that you can actually hear everything, so it's synced. I shall show you that in a sec. But in order to hear it, so remember I've got my external sound card, well my interface, hooked up into the back here via USB. I've selected that interface in here with the 32 ins and outs, and I've synced it. Sync the hardware via this option within MIDI and sync, and then importantly, well, just as importantly, I'll put send MIDI clock. So okay, so the RD9, this is the main screen. It's an audio channel because I'm using it's audio out, audio in to the audio interface. So although this is sending a MIDI message to start and stop it, and sending the clock, BPM, everything else, it's still an audio track, so it needs to be on an audio track. So you've got MIDI tracks down there, or audio tracks there. So I know that this, on the back of my interface, the RD9 is going to input 8, and then it's going out the main outs 1 and 2 on the back of my interface. I'll solo it, so you can't hear anything, but you can see there's a signal going through, and that's just because I'm not monitoring it. So if I now monitor it, there you go, yeah, there's the RD9, and you can see that it's start, stop. It's great, love it. Now then, so that's that screen for this, the RD9. It's a audio track, monitored in, that's the back of my interface, that's the main outs. So if I go to this screen, all the other audio screens will be the same as this. So if I flick through Digitact, oops, touched a quick link there, Digitact, Pro 3, Mini Freak. But if you go to this screen, you can see a more condensed view of it. So here you can monitor in, monitor out all of them, solo any of them. So I'll solo the Digitech now, which is actually got my 303 and the Moog grandmother going into it. So if I turn the Moog grandmother on, you'll hear that as well. Maybe turn it up. Sounds a bit out of key, but anyway, this is just for demonstration purposes. So yeah, you can solo them all, you can mute them all, you can record, sample them in, which is what I'm looking forward to doing, and you can do them all at the same time. So you know, there's record arm and hold shift, record arm them all. They've all got their own audio channels, so you'll be recording all of them into their own individual audio channel, which is great. And there's loads more that you'll be able to do with this. I've very recently got this, so I'm only just getting into it, but I watched a lot of videos on how to do this particularly, just the syncing, start, stop, and get it all working. And so I thought that's why I'd do a video on it now. It's very kind of beginner, really. Beginner MPC, beginner routing, I suppose. But also, you might be scratching your head with something that you can't quite figure out, and hopefully this video helps with that. Just to show that it follows the BPM, etc. We'll put it on global BPM here. I'm going to hit play and tweak the BPM. So you can hear it's all following the clock, which is great. So yeah, what I'll do next is I'll give you a quick kind of full shot of it all kind of flashing and playing together, and then I'll do a track focusing on this so you can kind of see how I'm bringing things in and out, really. Okay, so I'll just introduce musically each instrument slowly, and I'm just going to use the camera mic because it's kind of for demonstration purposes, so hopefully that works alright. So yeah, here it is. So this will be the initial bits, just like internal MPC stuff. Again, it's nothing fancy. Start, stop, MIDI messages, really simple MPC live stuff via MIDI, using the audio channels, using an external interface, and syncing everything up. So it's just really kind of demonstration. But yeah, so here goes. In fact, it might be better if you can see a bit more of what I'm doing here. Let's move it slightly over. So that was I was bringing in the 303 synced up to a Diggy. this is just using key links that I've routed to different internal effects. And yeah, that's kind of it really, just rough demo. I've not got the Mini Freaking or the Grandmother, but to be honest with you, they're doing exactly the same as everything else. It's just they've got their own sequence. So, so like the RD9's got its own sequence, 303's got its own sequence. It's the same with the Pro 3, the Grandmother via that, although via the dig attach, although it's pretty simple. It's all very simple kind of stuff, but it's just, yeah, demonstration purposes really. So I hope it's helped in some way. I know it's the sort of stuff I've been reading up on and looking at and just trying to make sure I've kind of got it right. There's loads of other ways of doing it. A MIDI 3-box would be great, an external MIDI clock would be nice for kind of really ensuring everything's absolutely bang on. Although this at the minute seems to work pretty good, actually, I have to say. I will be getting a powered USB hub to link all of this lot up just via USB MIDI, so I can kind of have that even more control of the synths via this, so I can start programming MIDI notes from the MPC. So yeah, this is a fairly kind of fundamental, basic setup. I'm very new to the MPC, so I'm sure there's lots of far more complex and interesting videos out there. But yeah, I thought I'd do this one to see if it helps anyone out, basically. So yeah, nice one. If you got any questions or anything, just let me know.